In this episode of the podcast, we talk about if age really matters in casting. Welcome to the How to Get on Reality TV podcast with Dan Giesling, where I answer your reality TV casting questions once a week. Hey everyone, what's going on? Welcome to the next episode of How to Get on Reality TV podcast. My name's Dan Giesling, and as always, I'm really excited to be here today because number one, we always have a great question, and number two, it's getting towards the end of the American season of a specific show, and that specific show, you guys know what I'm talking about, has also released the casting information for the United States. Next version of it should be season 18. So that's exciting because it was kind of like a Canadian balance. Like Canadian now is kind of closing down, Americans ramping up, then Survivor. It's cool. It's cool to see the different ebbs and flows of casting, and I can tell by the questions coming in where people are at in the process, and that's awesome. And we have a great question this week, but before we get into that question, I want to remind you guys, if you don't know about the free email list, I encourage you guys to join it. Every week, I send an email out on Tuesdays that take the podcast question and takes it one step further. So it's information you can't find on the website. It's information you're not going to get on the podcast. It's information you're not going to get on the YouTube channel. It's just my way of thanking people that sign up for the email list to give you guys take the questions to another level, because I like to keep these podcasts relatively short, and bite-sized information, somewhere between like 8 and 14 minutes, so you guys can listen to it on the road or when you're running a mile or somewhere in between. So this just kind of takes each question that's answered on the podcast one step further, and you can get that extra step absolutely free, no spam. I never send any unnecessary email to you. You can join the email list by going to howtogetonrealitytv.net/list. It's a really easy sign-up form. Like I said, I don't send anything that isn't of value to you in helping you get further in the casting process or setting yourself up to be successful in the casting process. So if you're interested in joining the list, you can check it out by going to howtogetonrealitytv.net/list. So I know a lot of you guys are already on the list, and you guys email say, hey Dan, thanks for the extra tip, and it's awesome. Anything I can do to help you, that's what this podcast is for, and help more normal people like you and I. And if you're taking the time to listen to this, it shows how important it is to you to get cast and get yourself in the best possible position. So you can join that by going to howtogetonrealitytv.net/list. So let's go ahead and jump into this week's question, which is all about age in casting.
Hey Dan, Stu G from Madison, Wisconsin. Love your show, love the content, appreciate what you have to offer. My question is similar to the one that was asked and you answered in this week's podcast, but I thought I'd go forward nonetheless. Having several different things to address within your video, but not sure what direction going in, I thought I'd go through my list. I've had 2 brain surgeries, second of which was for an infection that should have killed me. I proposed marriage to my wife after 11 days of dating, but now we've been married 21 years, and I have a master's degree and run a healthcare consulting firm, but I definitely don't look the part. Tattoos, piercings, and such. That being said, I am 47 years old, will be 48 if I'm on the show. And it looks to me that it's a higher hurdle to jump over when you're a little bit older. There's no one over 34 this year, and Donnie was the only one that I believe was over 30 last year. So should I just address the age issue, or should I not even talk about the age issue and just go forward with the archetypes within the 3 other areas that I mentioned previously? Appreciate you're looking into this question, and I'll look forward to hearing it on your show. Thank you.
Hey Stu, thanks so much for asking the question. It's a great one. I'm glad you hit this nail on the head about, hey, does age matter and should I talk about it? Because there's always a lot of conversation about why you don't see older people, your words, not mine, let's say over 35, over 35 years old on reality TV. And there's a lot of different aspects to this question that we're going to answer. Before we do that, though, I have to say you nailed your character points awesomely. When you were explaining yourself, like you painted this picture of who you are, and all I had to go from was your audio. Because here's what the weird things about your life you nailed. And I don't know, if you use a podcast to do it or how you figure that out. but I'd love to hear how you got to that, because you really nailed it. Because here's what immediately stood out about you. You said you've gone through 2 brain surgeries. Immediately, that's an hour-long conversation in casting. Maybe not an hour long, but it's something that's going to be asked about, because most people don't have brain surgery once, let alone twice. The fact that you were engaged after 11 days, I mean, I would fire off a lot of questions in casting, like, what were you thinking? How did you know? Like, that's pretty bizarre and different and unique and awesome all at the same time. But I think where it really got interesting for you is, like, you work in healthcare, but you don't look like you typically would work in healthcare. And I think there's a lot of questions regarding that in terms of, how are you treated? What is that like for you? But over all of those things, one of the things, and that you asked Stu, you said, hey, should I talk about age or should I not? And I feel like if you weren't going to talk about it, it's like this huge elephant in the room. And the fact that you could use your age as an asset and as a part of your story, because, there's a lot of, I don't want to say, there's just something recently that came out that Les Moonves, the head of CBS, spoke out about the cast, and in a small comment. And I think there's always a desire to have older people on the show, and I follow what the casting people say, and I think it's a lot of, this is making a very broad stroke generalization, a lot of older people that apply for the show don't understand their story as well as you do. Depending on how you package your stuff together, I would think that that's a really unique story, and you'd have to be really kind of blah on camera to not get to the next part. And I don't know your casting history, but just knowing that it's really, really unique, and you probably bring something to the table that they don't see a lot at a certain age. So the question is, should you talk about it, and how do you talk about it? So I think you definitely should, because it's going to be one of the main aspects of how you're going to be portrayed on the show. You're going to be probably the old guy on the show, even though you're not really old at all. So for what that means is, what do you bring to the table as an older person? How are you going to use that when you're on the show? How are you going to relate to younger people on the show? How are you going to beat younger people on the show? How does how you look and your age affect you in the workplace? Do people think you're younger than you are? There's a lot of different angles you can take this. But I would definitely make that a part of your story. Now, here's where I draw the line. I wouldn't go out and say, hey, how come you guys never have old people on the show? Or, you need to cast me because I'm going to be the best old person of all time. I wouldn't take it that angle and say, like, a lot of people go in and say, hey, why don't you cast more people? Or I'm going to fill the old person role on the show. You don't want to take that route. You just want to talk about what you're going to bring to the table and how your age enhances that. Don't say, I'm going to appeal to a older demographic. That's not what you want to say. You want to say, hey, I've experienced a lot in my life. And I know this is very broad. I've experienced a lot in my life, and you're going to tell those experiences that only you're going to have, as I believe you said you're 47, as a 47-year-old, that someone that's 27-year-old isn't going to have. And I think you have to talk about it, but talk about it not from a broadcasting standpoint, like, why don't you have any old guys, but talk about it more as how it accentuates your story and how it's part of your story, because you have to treat that as part of your story, like I said, because it most certainly is going to be brought up at some point on the show if you're on, how you're the oldest person in the house. And you may not be the oldest person, but you may be the oldest guy in the house, unless they bring back some older people. But I'm glad you asked the question, because I think a lot of people avoid talking about age in their audition video, or they talk about it in the wrong way. Like, I guarantee older people that send in audition videos are like, hey, how come you never have guys like me? I'm the old guy on the show. Well, they don't have people like you on the show because you're not talking about what's most important, which is talking about you and your story and your experiences. You look at some of the older people that have got on, say, a show like Big Brother. You take Jerry McDonald. He's the oldest male house guest of all time. He had an incredible story. He was, was in the military at age 16. He's a great grandfather. It kept going and going and going. And I think he ultimately got on the show because that's who he was, and he didn't necessarily he just understood how to tell stories. He understood his life. He could tell his life in a story, where where I don't think most people most people naturally can't do that, or most people can't do that without a little push or a little adjustment or a little tweak. But Stu, I do have to say I was really impressed with the fact that you nailed your weird list, and you just add age a part of that, and use the age as your own casting point and tie it into everything else. And I think you're going to do great, man. So Stu, I hope this helps out. I hope this encourages you to talk about your age in a manner that's beneficial to you. And I hope that other people that are listening that may be older, that may be hesitant to apply for the show or not sure what to do. I hope this encourages you guys to apply that may be over 35 or over 40, because I think that makes for such a more interesting cast, especially when you have some great older contestants like a Jerry on a show. So that being said, Stu, as a small thank you, we're going to send you a free digital copy of my book, How a Normal Guy Got Cast on Reality TV. And if you want your question answered on the show, just like Stu, you can go to howtogetonrealitytv.net/ask, and there is a simple recording app where you hit a button and you record either directly to your laptop, from your phone, from your tablet. It's really easy, and your question may get answered on the show. And if we pick you, of course, you get a free digital copy. But more importantly, you get your direct question answered, and hopefully this propels Stu to do great things and press on and success of reality TV. But Stu, thank you so much for asking your question, and I hope it helped. Age, is it just a number? I don't know. I personally, from a bias standpoint, I like seeing older people on reality TV because it's not everyone's the same age talking about the same experience and the same kind of things. Anyways, I think it's a great episode. I think it's a great episode because we had a great question, and thanks to Stu again for firing that out there. I want to remind you guys, if you want to take this one step further and learn a little bit more about how to incorporate age into your audition video, be sure to sign up for the email list at howtogetonrealitytv.net/list. I'm going to be including a specific tip that you won't find on the podcast. You only get it in the email. You can sign up for it by going to howtogetonrealitytv.net/list. And thank you guys so much for watching. This episode is going to come out a little bit later than normal, but episodes are always released on Monday. And I want to thank you guys for listening. I would not continue to create the show if you guys weren't listening and providing the feedback and enjoying it as much as I am creating it. So thank you guys for all the support and for watching it and for sharing your success. I just had someone email me last week about showing a video of them on a show. I'm like, number one, I didn't know that was a show, which is awesome. And number two, that's awesome that you made it on. So thank you guys. And if you've had success, please, email me and show me that stuff, because, it's awesome. It's cool to sharing your success. But thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys next week, and best of luck on your casting journey.